This final book I'll talk about, called I Stand All Amazed by Elane Durham, is a great book. It was this book that convinced my wife to really order the Book of Mormon. And let me explain why. So after being clinically dead for over an hour, there was a profound revelation made to Elane Durham by Christ and angelic beings. And when she asked a single question, she said, "What is the right church?" or "Which church is the right church?" She had been seeking her whole life. She didn't really know much about denominations. So she wanted to know, obviously. Now, to be very clear, Elane Durham was not a Mormon, did not know anything about the faith at the time of her experience, nor would it be in her best interest to come up with the answer that Mormonism, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, was the right church. If she was trying to make money, that just doesn't sell very well in mainstream Christian circles, and it would probably be readily rejected. So the answer she received was very specific, but it did maintain a very sensitive requirement of freedom that allowed her to find this perfected church on her own. So I want to quote directly from Elane Durham's book called I Stand All Amazed.
Matt in this video is reading from Elane Durham's book, I Stand All Amazed, about her near-death experience and her wanting to know which church she should join. A comparison was given to her by a heavenly messenger, and Matt will now read this.
The religion that brings you personally closest to God is the best religion for you. Each religion is a vehicle to take you to the final destination. I saw all manners or modes of transportation crossing the darkened sky, from walking to horses, to carriages, stagecoaches, cars, boats, ships, and all sorts of aircraft, including a rocket. The rocket was the fastest of them all. Others went slower, but no two of them were going at the same rate. But only the rocket went all the way from one horizon to the other. The angel explained to me that just like these modes of travel, so we that go to various churches that contain portions of God's truth travel the spiritual pathway leading to our ultimate heavenly home. Some of us go rapidly, and some of us go slowly. Some go great distance, and others not so far. But our speed and distance are determined by the amount of God's truth in the church we choose to join. The more of God's truth in the church we unite ourselves with, and the more we personally adhere to that truth, the faster and farther that we will go. And only Christ's perfected church, represented by the rocket that I had seen, could take us to the highest heavenly realm in the shortest amount of time. I was told that it was not the right church, but rather it was the perfect church, which is part of heaven and had been created there. It was designated as perfect because it was composed of the perfect organizational structure and taught as saving doctrines and ordinances, the perfect or complete truth known by God the Father and His beloved Son. In its perfected state, Christ's church had been brought to earth and given to mortals. However, it did not take long for us to begin to change the church and cause it to lose its truth. We put up walls that divided the church as we sought wealth, honor, glory, and worldly lust, as well as through fears we instilled in each other. In that condition, the perfect church became so weakened that it fragmented into numerous less perfect churches. I was told that all of these churches have portions of the truth, but that only the church, as it was created in heaven, has all of it. I was told that Christ's church is on the earth again today, and if I desired to find it, I would find it. I would recognize among this people the same spirit of peace and joy that I had felt with Jesus and the angels in this higher spiritual realm. As a matter of fact, before Elane Durham came back, it said it would take her about 15 to 20 years to find this church, and if she tried, she would find it. So indeed, it took Elane Durham 15 years after coming back to life to find the same spirit. The moment she met the missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, she understood their doctrine. She knew that she had found the perfected church. The Holy Spirit convicted her exactly as she was described. Her story at least convinced my wife to order the Book of Mormon. And in fact, she went to the local LDS ward that Sunday Now, this was pretty much about the time I freaked out. I literally thought that my wife was going to join a cult, and I remember being very, very upset about it. I was actually a mess that Sunday, I'll be honest. I remember praying that God would find us a church that was doctrinally sound, but yet balanced the truths that we seem to be reinforced over and over in these experiences that we both were so passionate about. I actually told God that I had no hope unless He showed me the way, and I fully and completely surrendered my will in this area, absolutely. Um, it was not long after that panic that I also read Elane Durham's book, and I at least understood why my wife ordered the Book of Mormon and why she began investigating. So it was at this point I convinced myself that I needed to put off the preconceived notions of this church. And given my deep-seated probably misunderstandings about the Mormons, the reality is it would be nearly impossible to convert me unless the Holy Spirit confirmed its truth to me. So in the off time between missionary visits, there was not an issue I did not study or pray about. And here's some: the apostasy, the core beliefs of the Christian church as recorded by early Christian historians and church fathers, archaeological proofs to the Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith's life, the Book of Abraham, multiple doctrinal issues like the Godhead and the Trinity, whether a man could forge the book, fingerprints of Hebrewisms in the Book of Mormon, the detailed book and our life and testimony of the witnesses of the Book of Mormon. Between these researches, I also read the Book of Mormon, Doctrines and Covenants, Book of Abraham, Book of Moses, because I was also scared of being misled. I also researched opposing arguments to the faith to include a number of individuals that had left the church, almost like their deconversion testimony. In the end, the reality is the Spirit strongly testified of the truth of this church. I was stunned at its amazing capacity to relay a pure gospel message of Jesus Christ. It had a unique strength in its teachings on the atonement of Jesus Christ. It had a lot of consistencies with the Godhead, as understood by the first saints of the Christian faith and the early church fathers. The power of their understanding of the spirit world in premortal and postmortal experiences with well-defined levels of glory. The organization of the church was undeniably perfected. It was the most amazing aspect for me really came to this conclusion, is that it was revelation to prophets, or so they said, that over 150 years ago that perfectly captured the truths that were confirmed through hundreds of near-death experiences that my family and I had studied. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints understands the most basic and deeply revealed truths of those people that come back from life after death. There was no possible way that the Latter-day Saint faith synergized so clearly with the most profound truths being relayed in modern near-death experiences unless it was part of the restored message and now part of the fullness of the gospel of Jesus Christ. To even fathom of some of these concepts in the early 1800s is really incredible, given that they were not even part of our religious language at the time. They've only really become part of our language in the last 20 to 30 years, but really the last 10 to 15 through the internet. These truths were absolutely and divinely revealed through the church. There were no doubt about it that they were core doctrine of the church. Near-death experiences in LDS scriptures were perfectly harmonious. When this journey was all said and done, I recognized immediately that I felt I had borne false witness against this church and its people. When it came time to be interviewed for my baptism into the church, actually, it required more faith to doubt than to believe in the truths of the church. When I accepted the message of the restored gospel, peace entered my soul I had not previously known, and within a week, my wife and I were both baptized in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's Christmas 2014, and it's been nearly a year since my conversion to the church, and really my conversion was only a start of my spiritual journey towards perfected knowledge.